Happy Tuesday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy, another great event in the club room with Mark Moyer. Check out winagainacademy.com. That's this afternoon. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have a Fox in the Wolff Den. So we welcome Scott Fox. How's everything going?
Going great, Matt. Thanks so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you. What was the highlight of your Memorial extended weekend?
It was actually a lot of fun. I did something I haven't done in about 6 years, which is to have a boys' weekend. And so a couple of friends of mine, we got together. We hadn't done that in about 6 years, and we went down to Virginia Tech to watch the softball playoffs. Virginia Tech had an awesome season this year. Unfortunately, they got upset by Florida during this series, but that was great. And while I was down there, had a good chance to knock on some doors at the athletic department, which is what I like to do, and try to spread the best practices to help players be their best and overcome mental and emotional blocks, and certainly address a lot of the mental health issues that are out there these days. So that was a double whammy fun weekend for me.
Well, it's trouble on LinkedIn, but we'll be fine. Let's see. Do you know why Ticket Time Machine is orange and blue?
Well, now you're giving me a clue. Tell me your story at Florida.
So we were happy to see that the Gators had a nice comeback. They got smoked in the first game and killed them in the third. That was a little surprising, but yeah, it's tough to get. It doesn't matter how good you are; it's just always tough to get to the College World Series. And
Yeah, and there were a ton of upsets, unseeded teams beating seeded teams, and that's the fun of it, and it's great.
yeah, now the Gator baseball team has played very well in Hoover in the SEC tournament, and now they get to host. And funny enough, I'm sure it's no coincidence if they advance to the Super Regional, it will be against the winner of the Blacksburg Regional. So
Nice.
we'll see what happens. I don't know. It'd be tough to see if they could both get there. You just never know. But there are no coincidences in college matchups as they start putting them in there. But glad to see you had a good weekend. It's always good to mix business with pleasure. I mean, whenever you're somewhere, you got to take advantage of that. I was in Nashville and Chicago, and I always stop by places that I think could use what we're offering. So it's certainly a smart thing to do. We
Yeah.
talked a little bit about mental health and athletics, but for those in the audience or who are watching or listening who don't know who you are, just give a quick overview, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, sure. So again, my name's Scott Fox. I'm the founder of a business called the Champion Playbook, and I've been doing this work for about 12 years, working with originally individual athletes using some really cool mind-body techniques. And about 2 years ago, I had the great opportunity to expand the business and work at the university level. And so I'm looking to grow that business, and Tuskegee University's baseball program became my first client on that level, and got to work with the coaching staff as well as the players. And that was a great eye opener for me too. And we'll talk more about that. But basically what I do is hard to explain because I can talk about performance all day long. But the reality is that what I'm really doing is I'm opening people up to help them understand who they truly are. So there's a little bit of life coaching happening inside of this, and the techniques that I use are really cool. One of them was recently approved by the U.S. federal government for treatment of veterans with PTSD. This is real stuff. This is not me smiling at players and trying to do some cognitive tricks. It's some real interesting physiological changes that go along with these. And as I see the people suffering in the world these days, whether it's internationally or here domestically on a ball field, I think we just all need to be spreading these best practices, and that's what I like to do.
Yeah, I agree. Do you know who Joe Templin is? Have you met Joe? He does similar in the similar world that you're in.
No, but I'll appreciate the connection.
Yeah, and not a surprise because I think I probably either met you at Mark Moyer's event or maybe Tim Claiborne's, and a lot of people doing this, in the area of improvement, right? Improving performance, mental mental, physical, sort of just really getting you out of your own way, right? Is that what a lot of it is, just
Yeah.
getting out of your own way?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I don't even like that I use it, the term mental health, because, it's really health, right? We're talking about the integration of all parts human, and we should always be talking about holistic viewpoints on these things. But that's the world we're in right now, and that's fine. It's morphing. And so, yeah, optimization of people, that's really a cool thing. And our culture generally does not focus on that. And I say our culture, meaning our general Western culture. We like to see excellence that is in line with societal standards, but that's not always the excellence that somebody's called to do as an individual. And so there's a real conflict that can pop up into people, and when not dealt um, in a effective way early on, oh man, we see the results. Childhood events, they end up manifesting as disease, physical disease, emotional problems, uh, mental health issues later on as adults, and that those studies are just very, very clear. So I like I like working with the young people, and it's gratifying, really gratifying.
Yeah. How young are we supposed to start working on everything?
Yeah, well, the lucky ones have parents who have like totally have their act together, mind, body, spirit. Very few humans do, because we don't really work on that. And so what ends up happening is there's a need from day one. As my youngest client that I've worked with, I think, was 8 years old. There's no reason that one can't have an infant doing exactly the same procedures, slightly different variation of it. And the reason that it's possible to do that from ages 0 to 100, whatever you are, is that we're really just learning to exploit natural pathways and systems that exist in the human system. And so one of my favorite tools is the emotional freedom techniques, tapping. I've been doing that for 12 years. I'm a certified practitioner, and it's like a real cert, not like my kettlebell certification, where I could go for a weekend and make it and bang it out. But the EFT certification, I think it took me over a couple of years to do that. You got to get 50 plus practice sessions with people that you got to find to work with you. It's a lot, and I'm glad that it's a lot. And so back to your question, age groups, um, you know, as we're zero, we still have a nervous system. We still have meridians, and for those, if I'd have turned the clock back and my kids would have been colicky or I don't know, just kind of disgruntled when they were infants, I might have started doing this on them back in the day. And a lot of parents who are, kind of front and center on that these days are doing that.
But I'm not a parent, so I can't understand fully. But I have nieces and nephews, and I was around kids this past weekend, and anytime I remember my friends, there's just a lot going on that you have to worry about with regards to you know bringing up a child. So it's understandable how this kind of gets moved to the side unless something happens.
Well, that's right, and that's really where I'm trying to make a difference now with a lot of these collegiate programs is, let's not wait till we have something that's broken in order to address it. And so I'm really trying to insert some of these techniques, even to tapping, right into daily practices, even if we don't dive deep into those moments. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment. Simply by inserting a practice like this raises the awareness of, hey, this is something different. Why is this? Oh, we're interested in how our emotions and our mental systems are firing. Hey, this is cool. And maybe we can then get people to not be so stigmatized by coming forward and saying, hey, coach, something's not quite right. And that still exists today. It's a whole lot better than it was 10 years ago. But I've talked to enough athletes at all levels to know that they do not like coming forward and saying, I'd like to book an appointment with the sports psychologist in the office building across campus.
Yeah, I think the first memory I have of it was Chuck Knobloch. Remember Chuck?
Mhm.
And he couldn't, all of a sudden, couldn't throw to first base from second base. It was crazy. And then you have people like
Yeah.
Rick Ankiel, right, who couldn't throw a strike anymore, and he figured it out and became an outfielder and became a major league a hitter. But I agree, people don't like to admit that anything's wrong. But when you're in such a competitive field like athletics, anyone knowing you have that weakness, I mean, they're gonna build on that weakness, right? They're gonna take advantage of that weakness, even if they're on their own team, because they're fighting for playing time or a starting spot themselves.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of that, and unfortunately, what happens is people just suffer way too long. I just had a client come to me via his pitching coach, and he had the yips, which is what you're describing with Enkiel. And this poor kid, he's he. Let me put it this way: he throws 97, and not one scout is interested in him because he degraded over the course of 2 years. He suffered and got more and more removed from his true self, I'll call it. And I worked with him. We did the first session, which was it was fairly intensive. And he came back before the next session, and I said, "Hey, how you doing? How's it going?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I got a chance to pitch on the mound." And by this time, by the way, he's no longer a starter. The coaches are afraid to put him in a game. You can imagine a wild kid who throws 95, 97. And he did get in a game in relief though, and he said, "Yeah, everything was right around the plate. I threw the ball better and faster than I had before, but da 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 da, and I didn't really happy." I was like, "Whoa, hold on a second. You said you just threw everything right around the plate and you threw faster than you've had in a while. That is a huge success, my friend."
Yeah,
And he's got more work to do, right? Because he can't see the success yet. He's still got that high achievers. I've got to be perfect. And that's when I know you can't really, you may want to be perfect. Baseball is not a game of perfection. But my point is that he suffered for 2 years before he got some help. And we've got to get through that. Not only is it the degradation of somebody's baseball skills, but you never know what else is going on inside. Here in Virginia, we unfortunately had a wonderful young softball player take her own life. And nobody knew anything, that she didn't exhibit any signs. She didn't talk to anybody. At least we don't know yet. There may be more to it, but she certainly did not make it public to her team.
yeah,
And so my thesis on all of this is that if we can change the neurochemistry of the kids, even for a small period of time, it takes the edge off. We can also raise awareness by using these techniques. The combination of those two things, I think, gives us a bit of a breathing room, and so that somebody might actually be able to either be seen of needing some help, or they can feel comfortable stepping forward and they don't take their lives.
yeah. I champion for mental health with same here. Hashtags 5 and 5, meaning everyone has some sort of mental health issue that they're dealing with, and
Yes.
it's just about being able to have the conversation and feeling comfortable in the environment to share how you're feeling. And it doesn't always have to be to the effect that you need to see a psychologist. It could just be someone's having a rough time and they need to find a way to get through it and
Yeah.
not feel so alone. So there's a lot of different things that can be done in the mental health space, and certainly what you're talking about is extremely helpful, especially in athletics. Athletics is, we see a lot of that in athletics at all ages. You see it in music, right? We've lost a ton of musicians to by way
Yeah.
of suicide, but it seems not as that's more of like the people who've really made it, as opposed to the athletes who are high school, right? High school, college. It's scary stuff. Um,
It is, and this stuff has been around for pre-pandemic, from 2007 to 2017. The largest increase tranche of suicides was teens, and the increase was something like 57% over 10 years. I mean, that's an incredible amount. And then during pandemic, it got horrendous. From 2000, winter of 19 to winter of 21, girls aged 12 to 17, attempted suicides increased 50%, 50. I mean, we should be screaming from the rooftops about this, and get me going here. I got my adrenaline going here. I'll
no,
start tapping on myself here.
yeah, it's well, today's the last day of Mental Health Awareness Month, but my feeling about these months are it's great to have a spotlight. Sort of, we should be talking about this stuff and everything else 24/7, 366, 365 or 66. I got married on a leap year, so
Either
I have
one.
to say 360. But and now with the gun violence, the people who don't want anything done about the guns will point to the mental health, and they're not wrong that there's a mental health issue in the world. The problem is it's not causing people to go around shooting people. It's more about self-harm, and then just people who can't function in life. We see it on the streets with homeless people. So it's something that we need to have conversation around, and more resources and easier access, and as you said, get rid of the stigma, for everyone all year round.
Yeah, and this is a, a great conversation. Thank you for bringing it up and making it more than about sports. I love sports. Don't get me wrong. And I was a college baseball player. I wanted to be a professional, and I've spent my whole just about my whole life involved in some kind of level of sports, whether it's playing, coaching, training. Now, what I'm doing here, and it should only be a platform, though, right? I mean, we're using sports as a platform to open up issues about ourselves, learn about yourself, great, get some skills. And we say those words as coaches, and I've been that coach, but honestly, we spend 95%, maybe 98% of our time, focusing on game skills and how to win the game, and that needs to shift. And I was fortunate that I got curious about 13 years ago. I started to dive in online and just learn, read, find mentors, experiment, and I found some really cool things that help people essentially feel better and be better. Um, but they involved machinery. I can't have neurofeedback device strapped to the skull in the dugout.
Yeah.
Maybe someday they will. But I needed some things that would be portable and also have a real high efficacy, and hopefully clinically studied, which of the tapping certainly is. It's one of the few clinically, nothing's really been studied as much as that. And I think that if we can leverage the great amount of respect that our society has for athletes and get the athletes to start advocating with these certain techniques, it would be very, very powerful. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if we all of a sudden saw LeBron James step to the line? He's like, hold on. Okay, I'm ready. And then every in the playground be like, what was that? And then it would start to create a movement. And so to the extent we can find some of those athletes who are willing to step forward, and I think we're very close to that day. We've certainly had them, talk about themselves in a mental health capacity. We now need practices that the ancient wisdom of the indigenous peoples had. They may not have had exactly this, but qigong has been around for 1,000 years, and people have been doing that essentially for optimization, mental health.
Yeah, we want to find someone who actually has the issue and that's solves it, rather than just someone who's going to push it, and then you'll be like, well, what I'm talking about, where you said the people who are pushing these products or services when they don't necessarily believe in it. It's just,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
that's what we need. That's what's
yeah.
going to be harder to find.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I think from an athlete's perspective, again, they don't have to have an overt mental health issue, as you say. We're all on a continuum of mental health, but if they want to just address this on a performance level, which is how I got into it, someone
Yeah,
gave me the advice, "Hey, Scott, don't go out and talk about uh, anything other than performance, because that's all these athletes and coaches are going to want to see." When that's what I did for years. Um, but the reality is that when we are doing, let's stick with EFT, and I'll talk about some more techniques in a moment. When we're doing this on certain spots on our body, we are creating a change in neurochemistry. We can't help it. It's a mechanical process. I'm not believing in anything here. It is simply a fact that exists. And they've done blood samples before and after. We're increasing serotonin, we're increasing GABA. Those are the feel good neurotransmitters. If we can just do that, yes, we're going to open things up and we play better immediately. And I can tell you about some of those success stories. And if anybody wants to see more detailed testimonials, go to my website and you'll see some of my clients given that. And but I think that if we can just get people to do things, maybe it's this, maybe it's breath work, it's all free. You don't have to pay anybody to do this. That we can shift people out of the cortisol-laden fight or flight that people are in our society are in almost 24 hours. Literally, almost even when they're sleeping, a lot of people have too much cortisol pumping through them. And cortisol is good; it's there for a reason, but not 24 hours.
Last week, Joe talked about smiling too, the effect that just smiling can do on for you and for other people. And instead of walking around,
Yes.
it's another thing easy to do and doesn't cost anything.
Absolutely, and people would be so slow to implement, right? I mean, they'd think you're just goofy if you stand around and smile. I do that as well. I get together with a group of people actually online almost every day, and we meditate and smile at the same time.
Brent,
And
Brent wants to know about if you've worked with any ADHD children and what have you seen?
yeah, so I probably have worked with ADHD children because of the numbers that are there. Nobody brought their child to me because of ADHD. However, there is a huge amount of data that says that the techniques that I'm describing here and showing with the tapping is absolutely beneficial for ADHD. And if anybody who's interested can email me, maybe we can put that in my email up there, or go to my website and then contact me there. I can connect you with some resources for ADHD. And there's an emotional component to everything human. All right, just accept that. You may not think so because it happens so quickly. Everything that we do has a memory and an emotion attached to it. And so a lot of people in my practitioner world made huge successes with people with ADHD. And it's very, very interesting because that's not what you hear out in the general media.
Yeah. Let's start a little bit earlier. You played baseball at Brown University, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
what happened? How
Yeah,
did your career end?
yeah. Well, so I'll back it up. In high school, I grew up here in Northern Virginia, and back in the '80s, I was the kid that people were like, oh, he's going to be a pro. I know I don't look like it today, um, but I was that outstanding high school player, and I got a chance to go to both great academic university, and I played for a fella there who was a former major league all-star. And I thought, oh, well, this is going to be good. I get the best of both worlds. And so I got there and I had some really great games. And I had some games that I wondered, why am I even on this field? So I was the poster boy for inconsistency. And, one day my coach called me over and he's like, hey, Foxy, you got $1 million swing and you got a 10-cent head. And I was there, okay, I get what you're doing. You're trying to give me a little kick in the butt here. And I was waiting for advice, but he didn't have any advice, because he's totally old school. He, I grew up in the 20s and 30s, and they threw rocks at each other, And I just remembered that when I became my kids' coach, I wanted to be the coach that had solutions to that player who was inconsistent, and I knew in myself that inconsistency came from a lack of plan and execution of some plan related to mental and emotional uh, piece of myself. Because when you're in college, guess what? You're not in your own bed. Mama's not cooking for you. You get everything new. You're on the road. You're taking, it's a different world. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think no,
my
I agree. It's you see the difference in talent and just it's not even just talent. The ability for players to adjust from high school to college and then from college to minors or major leagues. And some of the better players, they take a little bit longer to adjust.
and I and I maintain that a lot of that is due to early childhood programming, and these are subconscious programs that run that we don't even know about, and until somebody can help extract a little bit. And the great thing about, again, the processes that I'm describing is that you don't have to be a psychologist. Every technique that I do is meant for lay people. And what's really cool is that when I help teach these certification courses now, I'm an assistant. in the audience will be people with PhDs, and they're there to learn what the ball coach knows, because lay people are getting better results often than the people who have letters after their names. And so it's really cool. In fact, I need to get this quote up on my website. A professor at the University of Virginia here in a psychology department said the future of mental health is going to be lay people administering techniques. I was like, I've been doing that for a long time. This is great. But I get it. There's not enough, literally not enough licensed professionals to deal with all the humans who need some services. We've experienced this now during the pandemic, right? Try to find a psychologist. Good luck. And so then secondly, the tools that the psychologists have, yes, they can work. However, there's been meta-analyses showing that cognitive behavioral therapy is much slower and less effective than emotional freedom techniques by a factor of 5 to 1. So in other words, it takes 15 sessions of cognitive behavioral therapy to get a measurable, significant result on anxiety reduction to 3 sessions of tapping. So as in the baseball world, we're kind of about best practices, right? We always want to have the best drills, the best techniques, the best equipment. I just say to everybody now, why would you continue to use something that's been shown by scientists in peer-reviewed journals to not be the best thing? Doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, I'm a lay person in the mental health space, and just sharing and commenting and giving support and trying to keep the conversation moving, which
And I love it.
you got to keep it going to get people to join the movement or even look deeper into what they can be doing. And that's how you get to the professionals and the other organizations that might have more stuff, practical stuff to help
There,
you, which is, we
that is
need
true.
more
And
of that. It's so easy to just click a button or type in a comment, but I don't see it getting as much reaction as some of the other stuff that people post, which I'm not trying to compare any type of affliction or cause, but it's, all these causes need more elevation, and there's just so much time and energy and people and money to go around.
well, I think that's right. And what just came to me was I think what we all need is to well, what we all need is to remove some of these programming that holds us back. Imagine you're walking the walk, you see somebody who is obviously, certainly homeless, probably mentally off. What do most people do? Well, they walk around them, they ignore them. And, it's a funny thing. We do that because we're afraid. If we can address that fear and try it sometime, go up to the person, say hi. What's going on? How, ask whatever you want to say. The person will be extremely happy that you approach them. And it's as simple as that. Is kind of removing our fears will open us up to new things, which will help us do cool things, which will help us do more cool things. It just builds momentum. And the great irony when I talk with prospective clients or university programs is that they sometimes are wrapped up in fear. They can't do something new because they're worried about, and now you can fill in the blank. They're worried about what the image would look like, what their boss might say. I don't know. This goes into corporations too.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. So to your point, let's keep talking about it and then take little actions forward. And it's that snowball that'll start to build.
When you approach athletic organizations, do you find more coaches are open to this than maybe individually, or is it a program that says, hey, we want this for our players? What do you
Well,
find right now?
what I find is that every university is set up a little differently. Some are centralized power within the athletic department at high levels. And so there's decisions being made by athletic directors or senior directors that will trickle down. And then other universities are very decentralized, where there's a budget that each coach has, and they have discretion over it, and they can work with any vendor they want to. And there's pluses and minuses about it. What I'm tending to see is that um, coaches my generation are least open to it, and it's because they don't know about it. They haven't grown up with it, and they know that their kids are different than they were 30 years ago when they were starting to coach. They're not quite sure what to do about it, and their institutions um, kind of help and hurt them. They help. It's not. I don't know that it's real help by providing kind of a box to check. I'm sorry, I'm speaking a little bluntly. I'm going to insult some people. There might just be a sports psychologist on staff. There may be no psychologist on staff. I've been to big public universities of 20,000 students where there's no sports psychologist. But the coaches have been led to believe that it's somebody else's issue, that they can tell that kid to go talk to somebody else. And I think this is where I'm providing a new vantage point, which is that coaches can learn skills to do a level of help on the field right then and there. Why wait and let somebody suffer when we can enact something that has been scientifically shown, reviewed by other scientists, peer reviewed, approved to be safe and effective, and that would really just change the whole dynamic, and it is, yeah.
There are a lot of great coaches out there, and then there's a lot of coaches out there who I think are holding back players, and also maybe a little bit destructive to kids as humans, just with the behavior. And maybe it's a win at all cost attitude. You have people screaming all over the place. Some people need a tough love type of coach, and some people need a little bit more, softer hands and encouragement. And I think the good coaches realize that, and they don't treat everyone on the team necessarily the same with the way that they're coaching them. And I think that's a big problem. And as you start younger, so if it takes a while for you to find a coach that really vibes with how you need to be taught, that could be there could be a long road back to greatness, I think, as you're at a higher level.
Yeah, well, I think there's you hit on a couple of really good points. One is um, customization of coaching, and if I could give that advice to anybody going to college or anywhere, is ask some questions to your prospective coach, and with kind of the agenda of how do you treat different personalities? How do you do things? I went to I got invited to talk at an American Baseball Coaches Association barnstorming event. And these are great. You provide best practices as a local person. They would invite me to the DC one. I get to talk about what I do. And I'm listening to some of the other coaches from some of the schools around the area. And I asked a question, well, the coach was talking about bunting. I was like, what do you do if a player says they don't want to bunt? If they just have a real problem with it, it's some emotional issue. And his response is, well, it's my way or the highway. It's like, okay. I think there's a different, more powerful, subtle way of addressing that. But if the coach is not empowered with some tools to do that, yeah, he's going to have a one size fits all approach. The other thing that you hit on that was really interesting was tough love. And I think I want to just differentiate between tough love and poor behavior. Because my question is somebody providing tough love from a spot of love in their heart? Did they consciously say, I need to ramp it up for this kid, but I love him, and I'm just doing this because I know he's going to respond, or at least I think he is, versus a chair kicker, a screamer, a swearer, a pusher. They did that out of their subconscious program, right? They never dealt with. And shame on the administration who allows that coach to continue to coach. Because
But there's so many players who talk about these coaches with love and respect and how great a coach they were. And I don't know. I don't see it. I wouldn't want to be coached by them, and I
yeah,
wouldn't want my kids, which I don't have. If I had kids, I wouldn't want them to be coached by them.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and I think that this is where humans um, fail to see the big picture. If I, as I say to coaches, if you took away your wonderful win and loss record, how would you know that you're a success?
Yeah.
What would you point to? And they kind of blank stare. Well, I don't know. Winning is the only thing, right? And I think that these players are responding to the fact that they did great things on a court, field, etc. They had stats, and this coach who behaved a certain way induced that. Okay, so we have a similar thing, although I think it's actually done at a higher level, but it's similar in the armed forces, it's the elite forces. Elite forces get human beings to do amazing things, okay? And they have something called a rotating suicide watch. The officers have to make sure that the young people don't kill themselves. So you can get people to do things, but unless you're addressing the underlying issues that are going to cause that person to break, what have you really done but had, created a sideshow? So I know,
Yeah.
controversial.
Rick likes that question. I think about what defines success. I guess even
Yeah,
outside of coaching, like what defines success with you and the people that you work with. We talked about the pitcher. You got to celebrate the little wins, but also there's a goal that you're trying to hit. It doesn't mean you're a failure if you don't hit it. So what do you define as success?
yeah. So for me, I think success is learning to understand who you are. And that's kind of a nebulous term. Let's try to define that. We have a calling. Each one of us has a calling. We love to do something. And in our society, very few times does somebody say, "What would you love to do with your life?" You know what they do? You go to elementary school and in third grade, because my kids had this, they give you an aptitude test.
Yeah.
And my daughter, I remember, so laughable. She said, "I like to travel and something else." So the test comes back, "You'd be a really good bus driver." And that's the kind of thing that we have missed in our society, is the spiritual nature of people. We're more than just a machine of parts here. And so success should be, for all of us, recognizing what we love to do and figuring out a way to live life from that spot. And when I say love to do, I don't necessarily mean in a career way. I mean, what makes your heart sing, joy. For me, it's what I do now. I love helping people who are in pain. I remember working with some coach, life coach type of person, and I came up with two things, that the only two things that I've really ever wanted to do was to help heal people and teach. And for the first, let me think about, starting at, graduated from college at 22, I went at least 25 years with really not doing the healing piece, some teaching. I was always coaching. I always coached even before I had kids. I was coaching when I was a teenager. My dad liked to coach, and it got me involved, and I love that. I love that. And that's the kind of thing that, to me, is a success for people.
How do you deal with failure in what you're trying to teach for whatever reason? Maybe you couldn't get through. Maybe they didn't want you to get through. How do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because what one has to learn as being a healer teacher is, um, your responsibility really is not to heal or teach. And we all want that. We want that home run, right? Or the responsibility is to really get oneself into a good state and to present the information and the best vibe that one can bring. And that's all we can do, And then how do I deal with if somebody doesn't respond? I just have to remind myself, I did. Did I do what I said? And I check in with myself and kind of a debrief. It's like, yeah, my heart says, yeah, we did it. We did it. And I've learned too that just because a client says, nothing worked, I'll check back in with that client in a few weeks, and they will have done something that is right in line with what they wanted to do. And they won't admit it. And not that I'm looking for them to do it, but it's actually got to do it because this happens so often in this world. Especially, I learned it in the tapping world. It's called the apex problem. I don't know why they call it the apex problem, but they do. And so sometimes clients will benefit, achieve what they want, and not connect the dots to how they got there. It's a funny thing.
Yeah, I talk about immeasurable data all the time. I think that's kind of what it is, even though there is a dot to connect to, but sometimes it just doesn't get connected. Can everyone be helped? And at what point do you sort of cut ties?
Yeah. I think that's a great question again, Matt. I think everybody can be helped to different degrees. And I say that because the process I keep pointing to is the tapping is a mechanical process, meaning it's just like when you're sitting on the table of the doctor's office and he hits that little mallet on your knee, your leg goes out. You didn't try to do that. It's mechanical. It just happened. Same thing with this. It's changing our neurochemistry for the better. It just happens. And so everybody should be able to receive some level of benefits. Like everything, it's just like sports, some guy may be innately faster. Can everybody get faster? Yep. But that guy with the fast twitch overload, maybe he's going to seem like he benefited more. And there was a second part to your question. What was it?
When do you cut ties?
Oh, cut ties. Ooh, I think if somebody refused to want to be better, yes. Because despite what I just said, that everybody can receive benefits by changing through a mechanical process, the mind is the ultimate tool. If somebody wants to block even a mechanical process, I believe they can. Incredible things have been done with intent and meditation. We're just sitting there, and I meditate every day. You can sit there and change your body chemistry and your physiology through use of the non-physical. And so I would not work with a client if they were um, intent on trying to block it. I've never had that client, by the way.
No, that's lucky to not have that problem because it's definitely a big problem. We you have to want to get help
Yeah.
and be open to it. And I'm someone who struggles with that at times or has struggled. I don't know if it's because I'm a Taurus, and I'm stubborn, or I don't know. I think Nick had a good comment here. Everyone can be helped, but not everyone is your client. And we want to help people who don't even ask for help and offer it. And sometimes people take offense to that, right? I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. And I think everybody who's been a healer or practitioner of something was at that great moment where they thought, man, I can help everybody. And they literally, you'll talk, meet somebody at a party and you're like, hey, I do this thing. And, you want to do it? And that can be a little bit obnoxious. And despite the intent to truly help people, somebody has to be ready for it. The great line is you got to meet somebody where they are. And it's so true. It's so true. So it's maybe having develop more compassion and yeah, it's a great word, compassion for wherever somebody is. Let them be unhappy for a while. It's okay. It
yeah.
really is.
Do you have a coach yourself? And is there an area that you struggle with, confidence, performance, whatever that might be?
Yeah. So I have had several coaches. I guess at the moment right now, I don't have an official coaching program that I am participating in, but I definitely believe in them. I am in a quasi coaching program for myself right now. I'm finishing up a certification for a new process that I'm learned called Process Healing Method, which is super cool. It was developed by a psychologist in Canada who also used to use tapping with his clients. And he found that about 15%, that's 15% of his clients didn't respond as fast as the rest of them. And he thought, what's going on? What can I do? So he developed this technique. And so I love that because I want to have, a toolbox that's bulletproof as much as possible. And things that I struggle with, boy, I struggle with stuff, man, and I think that's a great question. And it's a good one to call me out on because I think a lot of practitioners, they may come off as like the Superman or something. And honestly, nobody wants to be around Superman. we're all fallible. I guarantee you, Tony Robbins or any number of people out there, they all have things they deal with on a daily basis, and they have coaches. So what do I deal with specifically? I think that fear creeps up rapidly, if not kept in check. And I know that in my life. And I'm grateful that I have these techniques that I now use on the fly. And that's what I want for all people is don't walk around all day or a week or a month waiting for your next appointment with somebody. Do something now with it. And as much as I think, the cognitive thought shifts are beneficial, I think they're really difficult for a lot of people. And so I continue to preach on mechanical processes because I can teach a kid to meditate. I can't tell if he's doing it. And I can't monitor him in the dugout. I've seen my clients sit in the dugout and they're doing some version of this. I know they're doing it. And I know they're receiving benefits. So, so for me, I think it's fear of opinions of others, I would say is a big one. And there's always fear of failure. I have less of that now, honestly. I have more fun, and I'm glad I worked on that. But it's still there in pieces.
Yeah, I would love to know Tony Robbins, like a real conversation, and even people like Denzel Washington and Tom Brady and Derek Jeter. I mean, to have a real conversation of absolute truth
Yeah,
and vulnerability would be good to have, and
I
that's
think.
probably hard to get. But even though someone like Oprah Winfrey and just there's a lot of people out there you'd love to have a true chat with, which will probably tie into the last question of the interview in a little bit.
Yeah,
Talk to us about the Champion Playbook. You talked a little bit about it.
yeah.
What
Well, Champion
exactly
Play.
is it, and why should people take a look at it?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and it's really morphed over the years. It's not actually a book. I need to write that book because people always think I have a book, um, but it is really become a platform. And within that platform are kind of call it 3+ offerings. One is, yes, I still can do call it one-off session with people. That's how I started. I would do kind of an hour session with people. I say hour, but it could be as short as a half an hour with a young kid, and it could be 90 minutes for somebody. I don't ring the bell and say we're done. We just keep going until there's a natural stopping point where there's a cognitive shift. And that's good work. However, I really wanted to see people adopt this stuff as a lifestyle because what they were doing was parents would bring me their kids and I was the dentist. They had a cavity, I would fill it. And they'd go back out and they still wouldn't brush. So I wanted them to brush. And so I created a 6-module program. In each module is some pre-recorded videos of me teaching sharing some information. There would be some worksheets that were very easy to do, but they raise awareness. And then there would be a live Zoom call and some bonus materials as well. And within the live Zoom call, we do the peeling back of the subconscious programs that are getting in the way. And so over the course of 6 to 10 weeks, generally clients would do that. They would gain a deeper understanding and incorporate into their world. Now, the other offering is really at the university level, which is totally customized. I just listen to what my clients need. And my Tuskegee first client was really good about that. He said, my coaching staff is young. They need this. And head coach says, I need this. And if you go to my website again, there's a video of him standing on stage with me at the baseball convention, American Baseball Coaches Association annual convention. He has guts because there's thousands of people there. And he stood up on stage with me and he said, I had a little bit of depression in my life and I had some things that I needed to work through. I had one session with Scott and I totally became a new man. I think he said I did a 180 or something like that. And that's the kind of thing that I love to see happen because he's a wonderful guy. And to have him be able to see life differently and affect so many more lives because his attitude shifted, that's a beautiful thing. And so um, back to a physical coach too, a team coach. If you want to be really of service to your team or your client, it's got to be customized.
Yeah, I think the playbook, the term playbook, and um, it's thrown around so often here, and I don't think there is a playbook for sales, for running a business, for coaching, for um, not the one size fits all. And I think we
Right.
can all take certain things out of it, but there's all kinds of testing too with what type of personality are you with your selling and this. I don't know. I just feel like you can't just put me in one category. And
Yeah.
I'm a piece, a little bit of everything. So it's interesting when people put this out there. Certain programs just say, "Hey, this will help you," and maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe you needed to have this other person's way of doing things. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see all the people who are offering this out there, with a guarantee. Also, I mean, we shouldn't be guaranteeing anything.
No. No, you cannot guarantee stuff. It's like I tell coaches who might be skeptical, and it's like, does lifting weights guarantee anything for you? No, well, it provides, a better body. Exactly. That's all it does. It doesn't mean that they're going to all of a sudden become a better player. I do believe in holistic training of all parts of the human. And, I look for things that are at worst a benign use of time and at best life changing. And that's where I think a lot of coaching should be for you know everybody. It's like in when I hear people on the physical training side talk about, well, I want to have my athletes do some very sports specific movements. Honestly, I've been around enough high learners, world class trainers, and they'll be like, 99% of athletes need GPP, general physical preparedness, because they're just not functioning the way they should be. And I think the same goes for a lot of what people are out there now talking about mental and emotional work. It's like if we just do the basics really well, I think we'll be in good shape for most people. And if we can continue to raise awareness through these techniques that anybody can learn, coaches, and they provide huge benefit, then we're going to be in good shape.
Is there a sport that your stuff is more in tune with? Have you found
No,
baseball is your sport, but have you found other sports to be more helpful, or the people that you've helped?
so I've worked with athletes across many sports, and the sports that offer the greatest chance for dysfunction are the ones that have the most standing around time. So golf and tennis and baseball, those are the big three. Are the only ones? No, no. you know, Volleyball, I've worked with them. Lacrosse, worked with them. Swimming, all sorts of things. Basketball, uh, but it's those first three where, okay, we had massive amount of action and then it stops and you do nothing for a long time. Ah, your mind is coming in and saying, yeah, you're not really that good. And what happens if they do this? Oh yeah, let's worry about that thing over there. Yeah.
What about the difference between a team sport and an individual sport?
Hmm. I like these techniques for the building of team chemistry. They definitely can be used in each. Doesn't matter one bit. I like team work personally, and so maybe I'm drawn to that a little bit because there is a uh, there is a non-physical, our EMFs. We all emit electromagnetic fields. It is just like any field. Combine two together, they get amplified, and especially if they are in coherence. And we could do a whole show about heart-brain coherence and the value of that. Um, Individual sports, um, yeah, just I think I think there's a higher degree of of possible trauma And people be like, what are you talking about using that word trauma? Athletes get traumatized.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know, this is the reason that we do have yips and we have loss of performance. People are like, oh, slumps are just natural. I think a lot of stuff in our society has been normalized. Um, if you say something over and over, and society does something over and over, people just say, "Oh, that's normal." No, it's normalized. It's not what humans have to be. And so I think that we are kind of low on the curve in terms of human potential right now, even though we do amazing things. I think that more amazing things are awaiting us as we discover what happens when we remove some of these programs. I just keep calling programs because they are. And trauma is one of those. Everybody gets traumatized when they're a little kid.
Yeah.
And if we can erase those, man, the studies are so clear. It's called the ACEs study, adverse childhood events. Look it up on the internet. It's very clear that if you have one or more of those ACEs when you're young, you are much more likely to have diabetes, cancer, divorce, mental health, you name it. And so we really got to, back to your earlier questions, start young with these kids and help them resolve these traumas, use their body. We ignore the body, even though we're athletes. The body is way more than a vehicle to get stuff done. It stores memories, it stores emotions. There you go.
Yeah. Adverse childhood experience. What's on your bucket list? Whether it's a sporting event or travel or something to accomplish.
Yeah. Oh, great question because it's right front and center on me. I'm trying to figure out a way to go to Poland to help Ukrainian refugees. The perfect for relieving trauma. We were just on that, and I've been having fun, albeit maybe it's moving a little slower than I hope. I've been having fun networking with absolute strangers via social media and just saying, "Hey, I see you're doing something in Eastern Europe. This is my idea. How can you help me?" And presently have networked into a school in Poland that has some interest in what I'm doing because they just happen to have that interest even before I was there. They don't know about tapping, but they get it. There's a holistic means of helping people.
Yeah.
And so I hope that this summer, I'll just make my statement here. I will be over there. I'm going to figure out a way to do that, and I hope it's not going to be a one-off event. There's 2 million refugees in Poland. There's others all around the world, and the trauma of that will remain if we don't deal with it. And when trauma remains in a big group of people, man, think of the ripple effect that happens off of that. Conversely, think of what would happen if we got everybody, back to their heart. And that's my vision. And I never met my maternal grandfather, but he was from Ukraine, and I don't have any kind of connection, in terms of stuff at all. I never, like I said, never met him, but I just feel like this is a great opportunity to give back.
Yeah, I don't think any of us need an excuse to want to help out what's going on in Ukraine. Nick wanted to know about a link to study. If you reach out to Scott, he'll send you
Yeah,
some links and some more information on whatever it is that we talked about today.
totally,
You can
totally.
find his information at the championplaybook.com or on Instagram, coach_Scott_Fox. Uh, Last question on the Wolff Den that we ask everyone is you can spend a day, 24 hours with anyone in the world. They have to be alive and you can't be related to them. Who would you pick and what would you guys do?
Wow, wow. Uh-huh. Yeah, I would say
Or just whatever comes to your mind. Is
yeah, what came to mind? Well, I guess we were talking about Poland. There's an interesting guy out there in the world, and he's one of the people that I networked with. He's kind of a minor celebrity in Poland. He's born in the UK. His name is Patrick Ney, Ney.
Hmm.
And I think what he did is fascinating. Not only did he emigrate to Poland from the UK, which I don't think a lot of people do. He learned the language, he's fluent, and he became kind of a celebrity doing that. And something about that just tickles me because he clearly something from the heart, and I think that's always an amazing thing. And there's so many amazing human beings. Uh, oh, I'm going to have to give one more. So there is a scientist in the world. I'm really enjoying his serial show right now. His name is Greg Braden, and Greg Braden has episodes called Missing Links. Wow, life changing, wonderful scientific information, and he does it in such an entertaining way. He's like Joe Dispenza in a way that he's blending science with spirituality, and just hugely impactful.
All right, it's on the list. We're hopefully making some strides to make some of this happen. I think the bigger we get, the bigger platform, the more money we create. Ticket Time Machine, we got a chance to make it happen. So
Well,
really
you're
appreciate your time. It's an important conversation that needs to be had more of. And so we're always happy to have that conversation here in the Wolff Den. Check out the championplaybook.com as well as Instagram at coach_Scott_Fox. And we look forward to hearing all the schools that you're going to be working with and that
yeah,
trip to Poland to meet up and help with the Ukrainian refugees. I see big
that's
things.
awesome. I appreciate you so much, Matt. You asked some of the best questions, and I really appreciate that. It gave me a chance to hopefully help some people out there.
Yeah, I think so. All we got to do is help one or pass the
Yeah,
message along and keep it going. So tune in.
exactly.
Got more episodes this week on the Wolff Den, and have a great night. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.